Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Around the world, wherever you may be, I welcome you here today to the Awakening Channel. This is Ronnie McLean, your host. And today we're going to be discussing the pineal gland, what it is, and how to cleanse it. It has come a time that we know and understand the truth about the forces of this universe that we live in. It has come a time to elevate our consciousness so that we as human beings can begin to understand who and what we are. We need to know the truth about our spiritual awareness and our place in the universe. So that is why today we're going to have a program about the pineal gland. The pineal gland, also called the pineal body, as you can see, it looks like a pine cone. Epiphyseous cerebral, or the third eye, is a small endocrine gland. The pineal gland is shaped like a tiny pine cone, hence its name. It produces melatonin, a hormone that affects the modulation of wake-sleep patterns and seasonal functions. It's located near the center of the brain, between the two hemispheres, tucked in a groove where the two rounded thematic bodies join. Unlike the rest of the brain, the pineal gland is not isolated from the body by blood barrier systems. It's reddish gray and about the size of a pea or grain of rice, 8 millimeters in humans. Why physiological functions of the pineal gland have been unknown for recent time. Mystical traditions and esoteric schools have long known this area has been the middle of the brain and connection function link of physical and spiritual worlds. As you can see from the pictures, the largest pine cones in the court of Vatican City, and the staff that the Pope has is also a pine cone, and the staff of Osiris, ancient Egypt, is also a pine cone. It is interesting that the Vatican and many other things, as we take a closer look at the staff of Osiris, which is like the Pope staff, even one of the Pope staffs that they use, looks like a pine cone, which is, some people may call the seat of the soul. It's considered the most powerful, highest source of ethereal energy available to humans. The pineal gland has always been important in initiating superpowers. The development of psychic talents has been closely associated with the origin of higher vision. Steve Bergatz says it's possible that the third eye that connects you to your spiritual dimension. The pineal gland is something that is spoken of the New Age community as being the intuition organ and connection of the point between body, spirit, and very few people realize that the pineal gland is, in fact, a literal eye, as you can see here, and the eye of Horus. The pineal gland is a pea-shaped gland that exact geometric center. It's the exact geometric center of the brain. And it comes from the root word pinna, which is Latin for pine cone. Pine cone symbolism appears all over the ancient world, from the Samaritans, Greek, the Roman traditions, to the Vatican, as we've seen just a few minutes ago. The court of the pine cone, the staff of the Pope, as we've all seen. It's highly reverenced and to be highly psychic and spiritual significance. The bindis are often the word of Hindus culture as the way of signifying the pineal gland's importance of spiritual wakefulness. Why so many ancient cultures obsessed with the pineal gland? They call it the seat of the soul, with pineal gland symbolism. The answer may be found when biological analysis is done of the pineal gland's interior. Well, what is it? What is inside the pineal gland? Under the skin, in the skull of a lizard, lies a light receptive or responsive third eye. And this third eye is extremely important when you begin to start looking at the third eye in itself, which is revolutionary, equivalent to the pine cone-based hormone secreting gland in the human brain. The human pineal is denied access light directly, but lizard-like third eye. The lizard-like third eye, it shows enhanced release of hormones, melatonin during the night. This changes is to understand the mechanism which regulate the synthesis and the release of the melatonin. And it's very important for us to understand that the pineal gland is a mind's eye. Discrete, the reptile's pineal looks much like the eye with the same shape and tissue. That was from Dr. Kraft, a PhD chair of the Department of Cellular Neurology at the University of California. The pineal gland, again, the seat of the soul. What is fascinating is that the interior of the pineal gland is actually a retina tissue composed of rods, cones, and receptors. Inside the interior lining, just like the eye, is even wired into the visual cortex in the brain. The receptors of the retina strongly resembles the cells of a pineal gland, as per Dr. Klein, Science Daily. It even has vitreous fluid in it, like the eye does. Very, very interesting. There was an article in the Science News that stated the following. The retina and the pineal gland are organs primarily responsible for the body's recognition and sophistication process of light, external light. Until recently, the two organs in mammals seem to have little else in common and were consequently studied by separate groups of scientists. But a new alliance of researchers is now exploring striking similarities, speeding the research efforts of both. The findings have suggested that the pineal gland was the evolutionary predecessor of the modern eye. While it has turned out that the retina rhythm and independent of the pineal gland, once the groups of scientists began working together, they discovered surprising similarities between the two organs, including the presence of photoreceptors. That is extremely interesting as well. The third eye controls the vitreous biorhythms of the body. It works in harmony with the hypothalamus gland, which directs the body's thirst, hunger, sexual desires, and biological clock that determines our aging process. When it awakens, it feels pressure at the base of the brain. The pineal gland is located deep within the brain. It seems to imitate hidden importance. In the days before its function as a physical eye that could see beyond space, time was discovered. It was considered a mystery like superstition and mystical. In today's association, it was associated with the 6 chakras. And as you can see here again, the signs of the 6 chakras, the crown, then you have the third eye, which is right over there near the right dead center of the brain, the throat chakra, the heart chakra, the solar plexus chakra, the sleep chakra, the pelvic chakra, and the sacral chakra. It's about the eye 0 point focusing on the consciousness and trusting what you see. That's pretty much how the pineal gland begins to start edifying itself within inside of you, because it's very connected to every spiritual thing that you have. And energy seems to be connected through your chakra, and it allows you to be able to see things, the future, has you more connected with the more soulful side of things. Extremely, extremely important. I was told that the lens of the third eye, that it opens behind a physical reality. So you might want to relate that to that theory. When the third eye opens, it can feel like pressure at the base of the brain. We all want to be more psychic, right? Increase our connection to the other side. As our consciousness hologram closes, the soul's return to light. We want to empower and most of all, understand beyond the physical. Meditation, visualization, and yoga are all forms of out of body experiences that help. Pineal gland detox is extremely important. And I want to really get into that because cleaning up the pineal gland is useful for those wishing to develop a more mindset participation. The pineal gland is naturally makes its own DMT, and we'll get a little bit more into that a little bit later on. And it's fully operational when we become to remain in a visionary state at most of the time. Important fact. This is a very extremely important slide here from Dr. Ben Burke, a PhD, 34 years in the National Medical Cancer Institute. He said, point in fact, fluoride causes more human cancer and death faster than any other chemical. That's extremely, extremely important. When it comes to awakening the pineal gland, it brings the ability to consciously astral travel, explore other dimensions, foresee the future, and receive communications from loving ones and dimensional beings. And when we begin to start cleaning the pineal gland, as we're getting into, it begins to help us to become more focused in our spiritual life and more connected to who we are as spiritual beings. It's extremely, extremely important to take advantage of cleaning up the pineal gland. Some basic detox things I want to share with you. One is, as you're looking at this slide right here, the pineal gland fluoride deposits here as a result of consumption of fluoride in the water. And that is probably one of the main things that I want to really get to you is fluoride is likely a cause to decrease melatonin production and to have other effects on the normal pineal function, which in turn could contribute to a variety of other effects in humans. National Research Council in 2006. And in 1990, a British scientist, Jennifer Luke, discovered that fluoride accumulates in strikingly high levels in the pineal gland. That was in 2000 journal. As calcifying, as you've seen in that slide just now, we just showed you, the calcifying of the pineal gland tissue that exposes high volumes of blood flow. The pineal gland is a major target for fluoride consumption and accumulation in humans. In fact, the calcification parts of the pineal gland, as you can see, hydroxyphate crystals contain the highest fluoride concentration in the human body, up to 21,000 parts per million of fluoride, higher than either bone or teeth. And again, you can find that in the Luke Journal of 1997 and in 2001. Many places that you can find fluoride is in tap water, other heavy duty poisons. Avoid them at all costs. It calcifies the pineal tissue and basically shuts it down. Really. Toxifying the pineal gland. First step is trying to get rid of all types of fluoride from out of your system. The second thing that I wanted to really, really, really impress upon you is the introduction of mercury into your system. And mercury, again, is another toxic situation that is all around us. So, when you're getting shots, make sure there's no mercury in it. This is really bad for the pineal gland. It's poison. Don't let it get into your body. Some ways it can get into your body is mercury tooth fillings or pineal toxins. Have them removed. There are a lot of other types of substitutes other than mercury that you can put in your mouth in these days. All medical vaccines are also mercury tainted. So when you go to your doctor, ask them to not give you any kind of vaccines that have any kind of mercury tainted systems with inside of them. A vaccine preservative, thimerosal, is a methyl mercury and is very difficult to get out of the brain once it is there. You need to avoid that at all costs. Avoid eating fish, bottom feeders such as prawns, shrimps, which I love, tuna, and dolphin meat, which I don't eat particularly too much of, is bad and full of mercury. The bigger fish and the higher concentrations of mercury also have in its body tissue. You have eco light bulbs. The energy saving light bulbs is one. If one is smashed, mercury vapor is released into the room and inhaled. If you look on a lot of these boxes when you buy these eco light bulbs, these energy saving light bulbs, it has a very serious toxic warning on there, and it tells you that you cannot deposit them in normal garbage bins. Has to be deposited in a very, very special manner. And please read these boxes when you buy these light bulbs. Not just light bulbs, they are energy efficient light bulbs, and they do have mercury in them. So avoid inhalation of any of these types of things indoors, breaking them indoors at all costs. Mercury can be removed from the body by daily use of wheatgrass and cilantro herbs taken daily can help improve mercury from the brain tissue. So when we're talking about the detoxification of the body, you want to avoid first fluoride, because as you can see, it not destroys the pineal gland, but it has a very devastating effect on the pineal gland, calcifies it much. More people drink fluoridated water in the United States than the rest of the world. So if you're Canadian, really, really, really check to see whether or not if your water is fluoride. Here recently, Calgary had got the fluoride out of the water. There was a big major upheaval and media outlets as to why Calgary was taking the fluoride out of the water and wanted the kids to actually drink the fluoride in the water, etc. But Calgary did a very good thing by taking the fluoride out of the water. I would really, really, really get into making sure that your local municipality, and this is where it starts, your local municipality has rules and regulations of where they don't fluoride the water. There are a lot of other ways of being able to prevent cavities, etc., than putting heavy toxins inside of your body, such as fluoride. Also, mercury is another one that we need to be able to avoid, and I gave you a whole list of things with that. So get the mercury out of your system. And unfortunately, fish from out of the sea contain a lot of mercury. So that is very, 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 very dangerous, as though it is delicious, but it's dangerous. And the bottom feeders, because mercury does settle to the bottom of the sea, have a lot of mercury in them. And then the bigger fish with bigger flesh have a lot of more mercury content in it. Heavy tea drinkers, they say, risk fluoride induction in bone disease. 90% of Western Europe has rejected fluoride water. And you need to say, why? Well, there's a lot in there, and there's another program that I'll get back into fluoride. It's going to be very interesting. So take a look for that in the weeks to come. We'll get into some very heavy things about fluoride and what it does to people and stuff like that. So the third thing that I wanted to tell you was organic foods is a very good way of being able to introduce good, healthy cleansing in there. But we have to watch out for some pesticides or penal toxins. Organic, healthy foods with high ratios of raw, supportive material in them are penal detoxins. Meat is not really helpful either. Some people who do channeling work and spiritual work and stuff like that eat meat seem not to be affected, but for many, the high toxicity and density of meat will pose challenges, and we want to make sure the work can be easy if we want to get into being able to access more of our spiritual nature. The other thing is alcohol and smoking. Naturally, this needs to go along with some emotional attachments. Using them boils down, again, to your own self-worth, bad habits or habits. And, some people may say even unresolved trauma and stuff like that. Getting into healing your heart, cleansing your whole body system emotionally, rises overall vibration of being of yourself, and also heals fear. And you want to try to get away from fear, because fear is another thing that will help or will not help you to be able to rise to the really great possession of the seat of your soul. So, um, a useful advantage for when we start seeing and trying to experience other dimensional things. So it is extremely important to get into getting the toxins out of our body. Doses of vitamin C, echinacea, those types of things. If something is really toxic, do not put it in your body. And, again, as a general rule, if you can't say its name, it's most likely bad for you. So again, another thing that you want to be able to contact your representatives, local representatives, senators, law-making body people that are elected officials. You want to be able to make sure that they pass laws detailing what is inside of your food. So if it has a GMO component to it, you want to know about it. What type of GMOs and what are they doing with it? If it has any type of additives or alternative additives or anything else like to keep it fresh, whatever, we want to know what's inside of our foods. Toxins are introduced, artificial sweeteners, aspartame, refined sugars, um, numbers beginning with one, deodorants, cleansing chemicals, dental mouthwashes, and air fresheners. Um, and also, like I mentioned, GMO foods, anything that's going to go into your system that is toxic. But and again, it's a community thing as well, because you have to make sure you know exactly what you're eating. But if the labels doesn't actually really reflect what you're eating, you don't know whether or not if you're putting anything toxic in your body. One of the last things that I wanted to get into this in terms of detoxing the pineal gland is raw chocolate. Now, people go out to the store and they'll start buying all kinds of toxins and stuff like that. And, um, cocoa or whatever the situation may be. But the chocolate that you eat in the stores are not necessarily the type of chocolate that you eat in your system, right? So what I mean by eating your system is that it's not real chocolate. All right. So a lot of the chocolate that you buy isn't real chocolate. So people will buy chocolate thinking that they're getting real chocolate, but you read the ingredients again. I'm going to let you tell you that there's a lot of simulated ingredients in there. So I'm now talking about raw cocoa is a pineal gland stimulant, detoxifier, and high doses become a high antioxidant content. So that will blossom and awaken the universal um, portions of the pineal gland. And it also will help because a clean pineal gland, as you can see right before you, melatonin can secrete melatonin, DMT. And this DMT, doctors say that it is what helps us to be able to reach our spiritual other side. I think it's funny coincidence that the origin has for thousands of years about the pineal gland being called a third eye, because that's exactly what they call it, right? A third eye. um, that makes its own DMT. It actually has the components of a functioning eye. And it's possible that when ancient traditions spoke of the third eye, that they knew what they were talking about. And on this topic, The pineal gland is also thought to secrete the chemical known as DMT, which is a nickname for the spiritual molecule. So this pine cone shape in the sleeping state is closed up. In its awakened state, you can see that it's very much the way um, that it should be, as it's secreting the DMT. And so when we start talking about the detox and things that we need to do to cleanse the pineal gland and awaken it and having it bursting, I just need to really let you know that when your pineal gland is fully detoxed, DMT is secreted into your system, which is called the spiritual molecule, and is believed to release during dreaming, during spiritual and metaphysical experiences, and during the time of death. It is a chemical compound that is ingested as the most powerful hallucinant out of any other drug. This molecule is speculated to give us all the spiritual experiences, just so happens to be housed in the pineal gland. We make it ourselves. A French philosopher, Rene Descartes, in 1596 and 1560, emphasizes the pineal gland in his writing, called it, as you can see, called it the seat of the soul, part of the body in which the soul directly exercises its function. And he contended that this was the center of which the soul and body interacted and where we receive our messages from the divine. Even Jesus says in Matthew, the light of the body is the eye. The light of the body is the eye, right? The light of the body is the eye. If therefore the eye is single, the whole body shall be full of light. So the idea of being spiritual is no new idea. And it's long been suspected that the pineal gland secretes these types of neurological messengers, and several famous authors have suspected it as it was DMT based. So, as we get into that spiritual molecule, which releases that melatonin into your system, it helps regulate it in times of sleep. When we go into our really serious meditative states, the melatonin is released and it helps us to be able to connect and see what's going on in other dimensional beings. So it's been verified that when this pine cone opens and not closed, and DMT releases its melatonin into the system, when the system is cleansed, we can really begin to start reaching a full spiritual sense. And as you can see, that a lot of people around this world have a closed third eye because they don't have that spiritual connection. And the more that we cleanse and eat the proper food, that spiritual connection will come. And then I have to say, we as a people can begin to start being who we're naturally supposed to be being. I thank you for watching the Awakening channel with your host, Ronnie McLean. And I hope you got something out of this. Please write me and let me know exactly how you feel about this program. And give me your responses to it. I want you to go in peace. Eat your proper foods. Cleanse your pineal gland. And remember that no matter where you go, what may happen in life, you can make it through anything. Believe for you anything is possible. Thank you for watching. Thank you. Thank you for watching. And I appreciate that so much.